Welcome to Got Invention Radio. I'm your host, Brian Freed, and welcome to another show. We have Nick Cunningham. He's actually been a guest, I think it was a couple years ago on our show, and he is the CEO of China to West Group. And you could go to their website, China with the number 2, West, WEST.com. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thanks, Brian.
Good. And where are we actually connected to? You are in China right now?
Yeah, I'm currently in our office headquarters, which is in Zhuhai, mainland China, just across the border from Macau, very close to Hong Kong, but actually in the mainland.
Very nice. And are you from the United States? Or are you from China? And you have a bit of an accent, and I'm not sure where it's from.
it's I think you guys call them limeys. It's a British accent, Brian.
So I guess you're from the UK as well.
That's right. I'm from England. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Nick, what I thought would be a really interesting show tonight is, I'm sure you get it all the time also, and I hear it in our inventors groups and anywhere you go. Inventors are always talking about being involved and working with overseas manufacturers, prototypers, engineers, buying products from overseas, just all these different types of experiences that they've been thinking about or they started working with, or their myths or successes or failures, whatever it is. Let's see if we can help answer those questions tonight, Nick, okay?
Yeah, sounds good, Brian.
I know between people that call you up and ask you questions about overseas manufacturing and some of the questions that we have from the listeners of Got Invention Radio about overseas manufacturing, I'm sure we're going to have a great show tonight. So let's get right to it, Nick. Why don't you tell us first a little bit about yourself and what China to West does?
Okay. Well, I went to China. My original background is military, and after finishing the military, I went to China in 2003, and I realized that there was a gap for people that needed some assistance in China. They needed a good guy to run through projects with them, to go to factories, etc. And that was where the idea of China to West was born. And China to West itself is what I call a one-stop shop for everything from the concept development of a product all the way through the development process, through manufacturing, all the way to the logistics and getting that product back in a state of good quality and in good time. So that's what we do, Brian.
Sounds good. And what would you say, Nick, is the number one question that you and your company, being kind of like being there and also hearing from inventors, what's the number one question that inventors have about working with a company overseas?
Probably the number one question would be about the intellectual property, particularly in China. They're worried about the product being copied, and that's usually the question they ask is how do they stop the product being copied?
So, you know what it is, Nick? It's just a matter of people just wanting to be able to move forward with their ideas, and they want to manufacture. I know for a fact that a lot of people try to get their products manufactured here in the United States and want that American pride. But unfortunately, sometimes when you have a product and it costs $5 to make here in the United States and it costs $1 to make in overseas, wherever it is, that could be the really the breaking point of being able to have a product or not. And it comes to that point where, do you want to move forward and kind of be able to not necessarily manufacture your product here, but once it's manufactured there, you end up having people that when it gets shipped, they take it off of the vessel, and then there's a warehouse, and there's people in the United States doing that. Then it's going through the process of packaging, warehousing, shipping, receiving, all that, and obviously it goes to the public to some kind of retail outlet, distribution, something. People are buying it. American money is being used, and ultimately somebody's in business making money on it. So if you don't have that option where you're pricing yourself out of the market, you just might not have a product, right?
Well, absolutely. It's a very good point. I mean, it all comes down to what I call the Walmart pricing structure. What you're doing is you're going to be, ideally trying to get your product into a Walmart or one of the big box stores, and they have a certain pricing structure which is based on most of their product coming from low-cost countries, particularly China. So if you're and that pricing structure where you're adding your margin on, there's a master distributor adds his margin, and then of course the big box store wants to double it up in many cases. Unless you are making it already at the lowest possible price, you're simply not going to compete with like for like products in that certain sector, and it's just not going to work. So the big box stores won't be interested, and so you are kind of forced down that route, whether you like it or not, to make product in low cost countries.
So here you have a product, Nick, and you are just coming up with this idea, and you want to talk about manufacturing overseas. Then there's the inventor that has a product, has gone through some due diligence, did a patent search, has some kind of intellectual property, whether it's patent pending or design patent that they filed for, utility patent, which is otherwise known as a non-provisional. And they say, you know what, I have drawings for my product, or I have this idea and I want to talk to a manufacturer overseas. How do I protect myself? And what do you feel, and what do you tell inventors is the right stage to bring a product to you, whether it's completely raw or have some sort of protection on it?
Yeah, that is a very good question. The answer I always have is you must protect the market that you want to sell into. That's the first thing you have to do. So if you want to sell your product in the US, Canada, UK, wherever it might be, then make sure that you're protected, your intellectual property is protected there. That's where your money's going to be coming from, and that's what you want to protect. So that's the first thing you've got to do. Obviously, when you're dealing with a factory or any company in the Far East, you certainly want to be dealing, any company at all, in fact, you want to be putting an NDA in place before you spill the beans on your idea and start handing over drawings. So that's the next thing you do.
Okay.
Now, if you're going to be making the product in China, then it would be a very good idea to get a China patent, and that is not expensive to do. It's not difficult to do. There are English-speaking commercial lawyers, patent lawyers you can get hold of. Probably a Google search would find them, and obviously we do that as well on behalf of our clients. But get a China patent in place, and that will ensure that you are protected here, and that if the factory starts to copy your product and you see it on Alibaba all over the place, then something can be done legally to stop that.
Okay. So there should be a point where, just to have some peace of mind, have some sort of intellectual property before we present it to you. But, signing a non-disclosure agreement with a company overseas, does that mean anything, Nick?
Well, it means something with our company. But then again, we have a lot more to lose because we're Hong Kong registered, and we have a lot of good references within the United States and the United Kingdom. So it certainly does mean a lot to us, and obviously companies similar to us.
Okay. Well,
what it means to a Chinese factory. It means something when we do it with a Chinese factory, because obviously we're already registered in China as a wholly foreign-owned enterprise. We are a Chinese company as well. So there is that, I guess they would have that fear factor that we are based here, we are registered in China, and if we make an NDA with that factory, then it's enforceable. Of course, in terms of international law, it is enforceable, but how much an inventor will go to the efforts to pursue a Chinese factory I think it's probably unlikely.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and you said something that is a real interesting topic that we always speak about on Got Invention Radio, is doing your research. Look, you said we have references. Well, that's very important. You need to find out who's used whoever it is that you're going to, like your type of company, and find out what they manufactured there, find out what kind of experience they had, and that's really where you can make a decision. And listen, as much as you have a great company, Nick, there's other manufacturers around also. It doesn't hurt to get multiple quotes and find out what it is. One company could say, and this is what happened to me when I first started with other companies, one was making me a plastics product, and they said the product's going to cost $2, and the other one said it's going to cost $2.80. I said, okay, well, what's going on? What's the difference here? One company, and this is just an example, I think it was like $2.30 to $2. What type of material are you using for your plastic? One said ABS, the other one said polypropylene. So it's you need to also find out what you're getting quoted as you're building up and getting all these different quotes, and figure out what the right relationship is that you're going to start with. Is it going to be somebody for, make sure that your references are there, make sure that the pricing is there, make sure that the way the product is going to be made, what sort of materials you need to identify. These are all important points, right, Nick?
Absolutely, yeah. Research is absolutely essential, and we'll probably go into that more as we talk about the other questions. Just a final one on the intellectual property side. Actually, I normally tell inventors that not to be too concerned about it, and they'll see. They know, and we read about it all the time. Chinese factories copying the iPhone and etc. But really, the danger is a lot more from established companies. It is from very popular market consumer products such as the iPhone. Those are the ones that are going to be copied. Typically, a Chinese factory's got better things to be doing than taking an idea that is probably not yet even hit the home market and been a success, and probably in a unique product category. It's a very unlikely indeed that they'd be interested to copy it. Okay. And at the end of the day, if somebody the biggest danger would be somebody in your home country who spots that product, sees that they can exploit their own sales channels with it, and takes that product, puts it in a UPS box, and ships it to China, and says, copy that.
Right.
There's nothing that anyone can do to stop that happening. But what you can stop is then the factory producing that product with a China patent, if you spot it, and you can stop it being sold in your home country. And that's what you can stop.
Well, that's very interesting.
So
you bring that up. It's very interesting. And there's inventors that have the intellectual property, but they're concerned about sending it into a company or sending it in that UPS box to China. But like you said, somebody could buy it here in the U.S. and ship it right over there. Obviously, if somebody did that, anybody, and especially if it's not protected in the outside of the United States, people can end up making it somewhere, but they won't be able to ship it back into the United States where the intellectual property is pending or active. So
exactly.
It's and there's inventors that always ask the question also, Nick, about intellectual property, international intellectual property. What's your take on that? Is it worth it to do, whether it's China or wherever, in United Kingdom or Australia?
Personally, I don't think so.
Okay.
Now, that I'm going to caveat that by saying that if you do have an idea, which is the next best thing since sliced bread, then perhaps you should patent it worldwide and really go for it. And I know that's hard because inventors do tend to get very, involved in their own product, and they do tend to believe that it is the best thing since sliced bread. But I think you have to be as objective as you can about your own idea, and see that patents are very much only as good as your ability to enforce them. And so in general, I say you have to be very, very selective about what you do, because the cost is very prohibitive. and